Oh, hello. Today's video is going to be an episode in the irregular series Kill Team Shower Thoughts. And I'm going to be contemplating what, if anything, Nightlords tell us about the future. So, for those of you that have been living under a rock, it was announced at the Grand Narrative or World Championships event at the preview stream that Nightlords would be coming to Kill Team, and they show off the whole plastic kit. If you've not seen that, I did a video on it, or go check out Warcom, or go check out any other Kill Team channel. Nightlords are coming to Kill Team. I hope this isn't how you found out. Now, let's think of what that might mean for what comes next to Kill Team. So first we have to cast our minds back. When Kill Team launched, it launched with a book called the Compendium. And in the Compendium were the rules for all the teams, except for Vet Guard and Commandos. So when it launched, we had Vet Guard and Commandos, and then we had the Compendium. And one of the things in the Compendium, just like 40k did at the time, it has keywords along the bottom, and in angle brackets, it had keywords such as chapter, right? So you made your Space Marine Kill Team, and it had this chapter keyword. And a lot of people assumed, because this is how it worked in 40k, that rules would come later on that would layer over those Compendium teams, so to allow you to play a team of Blood Angels or Space Wolves or whatever you wanted to do. And you've got to remember that at this time when people were speculating this, we didn't know that we weren't going to get that kind of update to the game, you know, something akin to the Elites book, right, or the Commander's book from the previous edition, where they release one book that gives something to all of the teams rather than what we actually have, which is just new teams and new kill zones. And we were wrong about that. It never materialised. We never got updates to allow us to play sub-factions. And in fact, it seemed to me, I guess to a few other people that sort of watch Kill Team and comment on it, that Games Workshop seemed singularly uninterested in doing anything with sub-factions. I mean, I remember when the Black Templars Primaris Crusader squad came out, a lot of people were like, oh, that'll make a really good kill team, you know, it's got a good mix of guys, different profiles. Didn't happen, you know. Until now, there's not really been anything sub-factioning. Now, I guess you could say that the Krieg team were a sub-faction and they were one of the first teams. But Imperial Guard, and I'm going to say this now because it's key to the rest of the video and the rest of the discussion. We're going to get more into it on the next page. Imperial Guard are unique within the 40k and Kill Team, the whole 40k Kill Team thing, because in general, a sub-faction is a paint scheme. You know, for any other army, I think it's a paint scheme. Whereas for Imperial Guard, their sub-faction has always been tied to the miniatures. So a Krieg looks completely separate to a Cadian, looks completely separate to a Catachan, a Talan, a Mordian, a Tanith. They all look totally different. Which is a really interesting thing for Imperial Guard, and it means that they could end up with loads of miniature ranges, and people have been rumouring for a while, oh, what about an Elysian team, what about a Catachan team, and I feel like Guard are weird when it comes to sub-factions, right? But in general, when it comes to every other big army in the game, the sub-faction is how you paint it, and some of those have lore, and some of those don't. So let's dig into that now. So talking about sub-factions gets pretty weird pretty quick, because there are a number of interesting little wrinkles with this. So broadly, right, we're talking about anything that appears that can go in those angle brackets, right? So chapters for Space Marines, brotherhoods, regiments, forge worlds, orders, sisters, shield hosts, legions for Chaos Space Marines, plague companies, right, for Death Guard, that's a thing. Great cults for Thousand Sons, also a thing. Craft worlds, obviously cabals, witch cults, masks, clans, dynasties, septs, hive fleets and cults. Nearly every army, not all of them, demons don't have them, right? But nearly every sort of army in 40k and nearly every kill team in the Compendium had something that was one of those replaceable sub-faction keywords where you could write in Ultramarines or Eandon or Goth or whatever you wanted to do, right? It didn't do anything. The only mechanical thing it's ever done is in the Compendium, you had to give yourself a chapter keyword, and whether or not you picked Deathwatch locked you into and out of various options, right? It had a rules mechanic there. We'll get to Deathwatch in a minute. There are plenty of wrinkles, right? So, first thing is there's Plague Marines, Thousand Suns, and since the Compendium was released, World Eaters arrive in 40k. Now, in the lore, those are sub-factions. In the lore, there's nothing, a World Eater or a Thousand Sun or a Plague Marine is just as sub-faction-y as a Nightlord, okay? So you could say, oh, well, we've had sub-factions in Kill Team since forever because we've had the Thousand Suns, the Kill Team from White Dwarf, right? But and in some ways, they do look like a sub-faction. But because Games Workshop in 40k spun them out to have their own codex, and because, crucially, they've got their own line of miniatures, you don't simply apply an upgrade sprue to Chaos Space Marines to get Rubric Marines. That's not how it works. It's a separate kit. Because Games Workshop is supporting them as a full faction, I kind of regard them as a full faction. If you have a very narrative-first view of what's a sub-faction, then yes, they are a sub-faction. But if you have I would argue more pragmatic, but if you have a product code first view of what's a sub-faction, they're not within the range, they're not really a sub-faction. Okay? In the same way that even things like Blood Angels are, right? Because Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Black Templars, and Deathwatch, they still take in their army as their kind of basic troops and things, intercessors, perhaps with an upgrade kit, right? And then they have some characters, and they have some bits that they add in, right? Because they're in another weird little niche of the supplemental factions, right? But yeah, so big Chaos Legions are in a slightly weird place. Okay, I don't count them as sub-factions, and Games Workshop doesn't seem to be either, because they introduced this concept of plague companies, so they kind of tried to rewrite it, I feel, so that the Death Guard are a sort of a second tier, because you've got chaos as a concept, right? And one way of looking at the hierarchy is, well, you've got Chaos up here, then you go to Chaos Space Marines, and then from Chaos Space Marines you go down to Nightlords. And Games Workshop basically took Death Guard from being on a par with Nightlords as one of the original legions, and they moved them up to being on that same level as Chaos Space Marines, which doesn't sit well within the lore, okay, but it is how they're treated in terms of releases, release schedule. It's how they're treated in the Kill Team Compendium, and it's how they're treated in terms of the fact that they have sub-factions. Right, so there are different plague cults and war bands and things that come under the general banner of Death Guard. Then you've also got, like I said, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Black Templars, and Deathwatch. So I do count those as sub-factions. They're just the most fleshed out sub-factions. Right, they have codexes, but the codexes don't stand on their own. Well, they don't have codexes at the moment, but they have card packs, right? But the card packs don't stand on their own. They have miniatures, but you can't generally build an army entirely out of just the miniatures that are unique to that sub-faction. Okay, you need to dip into your parent range. Whereas with the likes of Plague Marines and Thousand Suns and World Eaters, I think you can, for a rare few things, dip into the parent range, but by and large you can make an army entirely out of that range. So that's my distinction. But I'm very familiar that there's a narrative first view that would put Plague Marines, Thousand Suns and World Eaters on the same level as the other sub-factions, but I don't think it's relevant. Remember, we're not really talking about what we think is the most correct. At least I'm not. I'm trying to talk about what I think Games Workshop thinks, because that's the aim of the game, isn't it? It's trying to work out what I think Games Workshop thinks and how they look at it. And I think they certainly look at it the way that I've explained, where Plague Marines, Thousand Suns, and World Eaters are entirely separate ranges to Chaos Space Marines. Harlequins is another wrinkle. So Harlequins has gone the other way. Harlequins was a full separate army, separate faction when Kill Team launched. In 40k now, it's been spun back inside the Eldar faction. So, is Harlequins a sub-faction of Eldar now? I'm actually not sure. They don't have their own codex, but on the other hand, they're not an upgrade kit from the Guardian kit. They are their own range of models, but it's a small range of models. Harlequins, are they a sub-faction of Eldar? Answer in the comments. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't really matter, though, for the purposes of our discussion, because Harlequins have a kill team and it's not going anywhere. Would they get a kill team if they re-release kill team? Probably. Kroot, right? Are not their own 40k army. Got their own team in kill team. I think largely because they had a team in White Dwarf that came out for Kill Team 18 and they didn't want to drop any teams. Seems to me like they didn't want to drop any teams coming across from the previous version of Kill Team. Radically change what you can take within the team, yes, but they didn't want to drop any teams. So I think that's how I define it. That's certainly how I'm going to define it for the rest of this video. And the thing that really backs it up, the way I see it, as being the way Games Workshop sees it, is if you remember the old Compendium, Deathwatch were a fire team within the Space Marine kill team because they're a supplemental codex in 40k. Okay, whereas Grey Knights, who have their own codex in 40k, who are not a chapter of Space Marines, they're their own thing with their own brotherhoods of Grey Knights that you can have sub factions. So in exactly the same way as Plague Marines and other Thousand Sons, Grey Knight's also been weirdly elevated to being that kind of second tier, so Imperium Grey Knight, right? And they have their own kill team. So whether or not you agree, I think I'm explaining what Games Workshop is doing, and the way the Compendium was laid out is my big argument for that. Now, I think that's changing. That view is changing. So we come on to Nightlords. So my way of thinking, Nightlords cross a line. Now, Nightlords have crossed a line. They are, for my money, the first team that the models represent the fighters from a specific sub-faction. Okay? As Games Workshop views sub-factions. And fittingly for that, they're an upgrade sprue for the base kit of their parent faction, because one of the main ways I said you could tell a sub-faction was that it would use its core troops would be the troops from the main kit. And I actually think that the Nightlords project probably started life as a 40k project. They wanted to make an upgrade pack, £17 or so, like the Black Templars one, an upgrade pack for Chaos Space Marines, for the Chaos Space Marine Codex when it comes out to do Night. And I wouldn't be surprised to see ones for Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, and those other kind of legions. And I think what probably happened is that, first of all, we kind of know that Elliot, the lead designer of Kill Team, really likes Nightlords. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but apparently he's a big Nightlord guy. And they're really cool. And it's just like a lot of stories you hear at Games Workshop. Like, I hear that the Warhammer Underworlds only really came about because apparently, and this might be apocryphal, okay, but apparently they'd sculpted the first warbands, the first 4 warbands for Warhammer Underworlds back in the day, as they were supposed to be for brand new players to get them into the game, easy to build, push fit. There was no game attached to them, and a manager saw how good those first 4 sets were and went, we could save this because we want to develop a game and we could use these figures in this game, and they're actually going to be repurposed for that. So I wonder if originally it was supposed to be at some point it was supposed to be a 40k upgrade sprue, but it looks so cool. It looks so cool. It deserves to be front and centre for its own thing. And I really like the Nightlords. I really want this kit. I think they look amazing. Really want to paint the little lightning bolts. Really want to do it all. Right. But I wonder if they do this, and especially if it's popular, will we see loads of other sub-factions start to pop up towards the end of Kill Team? And that's an interesting thing to think about, and that's what we're going to do for the rest of this video. Is we're just going to sort of think about what happens if in the vein of Nightlords, we now get other sub-factions that pop up within Kill Team. So the first thing I want to say, is this just a thing for Space Marines? Sub-factions for every 40k faction have always felt a little bit forced to me. And not just the really weird ones like the Plague Marines or the Thousand Sons with their sub-factions that I've never seen anybody use, but... Right. But also like... Okay, do you think it's more likely that we'd see a Blood Angels kill team or a Martian kill team? And the fact that I feel like I have to say, Martian, Mars, the Forge World for the Adeptus Mechanicus, whereas when I say Blood Angels, I don't have to clarify that I mean Blood Angels Space Marines. Like, you know exactly what a Blood Angels is, right? So certainly the Space Marine and Chaos Space Marine sub-factions have this body of lore, either have miniatures or have at some point in the past have miniatures. People love them. Now, I'd written most of this slide and actually thought, actually hang on, because I've never played Eldar, but I can name the main Eldar craft worlds, Eandon, Samhain, the other ones, Eandon, Samhain, Ulthwé, Baeltan, the big ones, and I know there are others, right? But and Orc clans as well, like Goths and Baboons. I'm sure there are more. The blue ones that like looting things, right? And guard regiments, Cadians, Cassichans, Valhallans, Talans, the Tanith First. There are other sub-factions outside of Astartes that are beloved, okay? There are. There are also lots of Necron dynasties and hive fleets and Genestealer cult. I couldn't even name one Genestealer cult. Is the one that's called, the Bladed Claw or something? Or the Bladed Cog or something? I think I can picture Rusted Cog. There's one that's like a mashup with, it's Genestealer cult, but then slightly Mechanicum-y. Forge Worlds, I could probably do a bit better. Mars, obviously. Riser. Metallica. But people don't care. You don't get the same. Games Workshop wants the lightning in a bottle again. It wanted to put sub-factions in every book because there are people out there who be like, well, I've collected an Imperial Fist army, but now I'm thinking about collecting a Dark Angels army. And Games Workshop's like, you're seriously going to rebuy all this stuff so you can paint it another colour? And Space Marine fans are like, yes. And they're like, cool. So all our other armies going forwards, they're going to have loads of these sub-factions, and hopefully people will get really into them. And it just doesn't seem to have stuck. So it's bearing in mind that, not all sub-factions are created equal, I guess. My other worry with sub-factions is it's going to lead to poor hobby. So when you think about it, originally, back in the day, sub-factions were just names for paint schemes, right? And in a way, they still are in a lot of books. But it's like, this is an Ultramarine, this is an Imperial Fist, this is a Crimson Fist. These are just how we're painting our Space Marines. And, you can copy ours, you can invent your own, and make up your own chapter with its own name, and it's all fine. And that's lovely, right? It lets you do your guys, and it's kind of supported by the lore, which is nice. And it also, what I like to do, you've seen my Lamenters, I like to pick a chapter that I didn't make up, that is in the history. Because for me, I like having things that are somewhat anchored in the history and the lore, rather than just inventing my own stuff. But I also like to pick ones that are slightly obscure and niche, so Lamenters are really cool. Whereas, I think, this is my worry. If they release a Nightlords kill team, then they are releasing the Nightlords kill team. I don't know why I'm being speculative about it. When they release the Nightlords kill team, it really feels to me like there's only one valid way to paint that. Now, I don't want to sound like a prat and a gatekeeper, and if you want to paint your Nightlords yellow, then I'm not going to say that I can't. Actually, I think you'll find they're supposed to be blue, or, I don't want to play against yellow Nightlords, anything like that. No, because it's. But to me, it just seems weirder. Right? If somebody's painted their space deck, even, if somebody's got Chaos Space Marines, Legionaries, they could paint them whatever colour they want, and it's a cool, and I might even say, have you got a name for your warband? Right? And stuff like that. It's interesting, it's cool, and it's supported by the way the lore's been crafted to allow people that freedom to paint things how they want. Once they start elevating these sub-factions, if they do a Blood Angels kill team, and then people are painting them, and they're not painting them like Blood Angels, to me, that's weird. Or Black Templars, or like the Nightlords, like we said. I'm sure, I'm not trying to be gatekeeper and saying, whoa, but I just, do you agree, or do you not agree? It feels odd. To me, it feels slightly, I certainly couldn't bring myself to paint Nightlords, or Blood Angels, or Black Templars. If the rules were for Nightlords, Blood Angels, or Black Templars, I couldn't quite bring myself to paint them wrong. Personally. Nothing to say that you can't, but that's just how I feel about it. It's a weird thing. Now, this isn't entirely new. Arguably, there's only one way to paint Thousand Suns, and a couple of people like to do the pre-heresy colour scheme for the Thousand Sons as well, sort of red and gold, that's fine. But apart from those two, you don't really see a lot of difference between Thousand Sons and players. I've never seen any purple Thousand Sons. Just putting it out there, right? So, there really is only one way to paint the Thousand Sons that seems fine. And this is not me saying you can't paint them another way, but I hope people understand what I'm saying. It's not me trying to lay down the law and go, they have to be painted that way. But I feel like they have to be painted that way, and I'm wondering if other people feel like they have to be painted that way, and if that, adding loads of those really fleshed out sub-factions, does that rob something from the game? I don't know. I'd love your thoughts. I'd love your thoughts on this, because it's all just speculative, rambly stuff. The other thing to say while we're on this slide about poor hobby, if they did a kit, they're doing Nightlords based on the Chaos Space Marines kit. If they did a Blood Angels one that was based on the Intercession, and then they did like a Space Wolves one that was based on Phobos for like the Hounds of Mordecai, does that get boring? When they start doubling up, if they double up more than once, if they keep doubling up with a new sprue, does that bore people? Does that lead to poor hobby? I don't know. But I think it's worth asking the question, right? So all I'm trying to do. So let's have some fun. What might we see? So, weirdly, I can't really articulate why. Blood Angels seem like a really obvious... Like, if they're going to do Nightlords, they have to do Blood Angels. And I don't really know why I think that, but Blood Angels are just... Blood Angels are just so 40k in a weird sort of way. Maybe it's because I started playing in 2nd edition. Like, that was my childhood box set of Space Marines, and if I was a little bit younger, I would think Black Templars, and Black Templars are so 40k, but if I was a bit younger, I'd think, Black Templars are quintessentially 40k, and if I was a bit older, I'd think Crimson Fists were quintessentially 40k, right? And if I was a bit younger still, I'd think Ultramarines were quintessentially 40k forever, because Ultramarines have been the box art guys. Well, no, Dark Angels were as well, briefly as well, but Blood Angels, for me, there's just something really aggressively on-brand about a Blood Angel, in a way that an Ultramarine doesn't manage. They need new models for a lot of things, and their codex isn't due soon, so maybe they get a little something to tide them over, Now, maybe that's not very likely. Maybe they're more likely to do something more minor, like the Salamanders, because Blood Angels will get stuff eventually, but Kill Team gives them an excuse, like they have with the Nightlords, to give a big plastic box for something that they haven't already done, so the Salamanders, the White Scars, the Raven Guard, the Iron Hands, those chapters. Excuse me, it's quite late. Anyway, and obviously I think the more minor Chaos Legions seem an obvious shout. Again, it could get repetitive if they're all based on the Legionaries kit, but like Iron Warriors, that'd be cool, Alpha Legion would be cool. Word bearers, these the kind of the big legions that aren't the big legions, right? And then maybe this whole thing of Nightlords coming to 40k, like it does seem like a lot of people have said, oh well, they won't, because there's been this rumour, right, that the next box of Kill Team is going to be Catachans versus Lictors in the jungle, and this has been the rumour for the next box of Kill Team since there were boxes of Kill Team. So right after Octarius released, you started to hear, I hear the next box of Catachans versus Lictors in the jungle. And I've heard that for every single bloody release. But the point is, does this change of mindset pave the way for Catachans finally? Because a big argument against Catachans, as I said way back earlier in the video, was like, oh, well, yeah, we've got Vet Guard, though, and you can just buy some Catachans and use them as Vet Guard. And I know that the Krieg models come in the box, but there's nothing in the rules that's very Krieg-flavoured. And they're not really doing sub-factions. And if you really want Catachans, I really would just buy some and use the Vet Guard rules, right? But now that's off the table, because now they are shown once again that they're interested in doing sub-factions. Because they're the Nightlords. So I think that's interesting. Now we need to ask the question as well. We've been quite positive. Is it for everybody? One of the... So there's Hounds of Mordecai here. The Nightlords, specialty Phobos guys that exist for some reason. One of the key things about sub-factions is they're not necessarily more... They are, necessarily more niche and more strongly themed than the big factions. Big factions are more blank slate. You can buy Marines and paint them your favourite colour. and use accessories that you want to use and not use accessories that you don't want to use. And if you want super, like, barbarians that are bright green with marines, you can do that. If you want super pious red guys, you can do that. Like, you can have any combination of things. If you want, like, loads of short haircuts and a really kind of thuggish look, and you want them to have, I don't know, green armor, you can do that as well. So, big factions of blank canvas, you buy a box of Mechanicum guys, you can paint them as whatever colour you want. As soon as you say you're doing a sub-faction, though, it becomes more focused. I just don't like Space Wolves. I just don't like them. I just think they're really, really stupid. And I wouldn't buy a Space Wolf kill team, even if it was the nicest models that I'd seen ever, and it was really, really powerful in game. Like, it's just not for me. And I'm sure there are people out there saying, well, I quite like the Nightlords, but I'm just not a Nightlords guy. Like, I have sub-factions that I like and sub-factions that I don't like. And the same people who pick up nearly every team might end up skipping Nightlords because, like, well, it's Nightlords. It's very strongly themed. And they don't want that. They don't want to paint the lightning bolts. They don't want to paint them blue. And they don't feel like they can do other things with them. And I've seen a few people going, oh, maybe I'll look at the Nightlords rules, but I'll just use Legionaries, or I'll proxy as Alpha Legion, I'll proxy that. Like, I think there is... Games Workshop might quickly encounter that, possibly, the Nightlords will be not as popular because of this thing, right? Sub-factions don't necessarily have the same mass market appeal. I don't know. And the other thing I have to say it, because if I don't say it, then the comments section will say it for me. What about my guys? Because if I don't mention it, people in the comments will talk about Grey Knights, Talons, Death Guard, Chaos Demons, and Tyranids. So these 5 teams are teams that existed in the Compendium that have not been elevated into a bespoke team, right? So this is what gets me. If you started playing Kill Team, like, when it first came out, like, over 2 years ago now, and you're somebody that had a Grey Knight army, or a Custodians army, or a Death Guard army, or a Chaos Demon army, or a Tyranid army, and you and your friends who all also played 40k all got into Kill Team at the same time, and you were playing your things, and you've steadily seen them get, like, direct replacements and upgrades for their armies over the years, and you really love, one of those armies on that list, and you've stuck with them, and you've stuck with them, and you've stuck with them, and you've still got no team. Like, I totally get you should get teams. And I understand that if you are somebody in that position who's holding out for one of those 5 teams, you'd be kind of like, what? Why are the Nightlords here? No one's got a Nightlord. Like, 4 people have a Nightlord army for 40k, right? But I'm here playing Tyranids. So why can't I just have some Tyranids and they've already got Chaos Space Marines? What's going on? I get it, and I know some people will be like, well, Death Guard players don't get to have a new team, and Grey Knight players, because they're still just Space Marines. Tyranids have a stronger claim, and maybe they do have a stronger claim, but Tyranids have a stronger claim than Death Guard and Grey Knights. But I ultimately think that Games Workshop owes it to the community to bring up bespoke teams, even if they're just White Dwarf teams. Games Workshop owes it to the community to bring up bespoke teams for all 5 of these before the end of the edition. In the same way that when a new edition of 40k drops, you get all the indexes and you have the reasonable expectation, that your index cards will eventually be replaced by a codex, but you might have to wait until, the 3rd year of the game to get that codex. This is the same thing, I think. People have the reasonable expectation that their Compendium teams will be upgraded to a fully featured bespoke team, that equivalent to that codex drop. So yeah, I do see you out there, players of those 5 teams. And I agree with you. You do deserve teams. But then again, I do love the Nightlords. So I'm not just going to sit in a corner and be sad because the Tyranid. I wouldn't buy a Tyranid kill. Personally, I hate Tyranids. So I think they're dumb. I just lost 3 subscribers probably, but maybe I'll gain 6 more. But yeah, there we go. Final thoughts. Are there any sub-factions? So talking about all the sub-factions, are there anything? Maybe you really want a Dark Angels team. Let me know in the comments. What would it be? Would it be Intercessors? Would it have one of the little Watchers in the Dark as like a little Pokemon on the sprue? Would you do anything? Let me know. Or do you really sincerely hope this is a blip? And we can get back to releasing the Tyranid team and the Imperial Tax Collectors team, and it's not everything has to start with pattern. Phil, put the red string away. It's one data point. It means nothing. You've gone off on a romp for a video for nearly half an hour in length. I have a YouTube channel to maintain. I have to go off on one for half an hour. That's the idea. But I understand the argument. Let me know in the comments if that's your favourite hope. I still hope that salvation is at hand. I hope that it's going to come to Sunday Preview this Sunday. If it doesn't come to Sunday Preview this Sunday, I don't think it's coming this calendar year. Like, I know I said this last week, and the stopped clock will eventually be right. I really feel like it's going to come to Sunday Preview this Sunday. Okay? I really do. I really, really, truly do. I just wanted to say, happy Thanksgiving to all of my American viewers and subscribers. I don't really understand what Thanksgiving is because I'm English, but I understand that you have like Christmas dinner before Christmas, and then you go on to have Christmas dinner. Are you still like? You get Thanksgiving off holiday, like just for the day, or do you get like a week off, or are you just off like now until after Christmas, like, or do you? And I know that some people in America will have to go back and work on Christmas Christmas Day, like they're living in a Christmas Carol. I understand that it's a dystopia in many respects, but like the schools, right? That's why do they go back after do they get like 3 days off and then go back off? That must be really like, I'm just trying to imagine trying to teach the children, and they've come back after Thanksgiving, and they're just waiting to go off again for Christmas, and you've got like what? 3 weeks. I mean, it's a bit slow. It's a bit hard here in the UK. But I imagine once you've been off for Thanksgiving, I don't think much learning is going to happen in those classrooms. If you're an American, you've got some cultural insight on this, drop me a comment and let me know how it works with holidays, like school holidays and stuff like that. Yeah. Like the video, subscribe if you want more content like this. Subscribe if you just want me to feel happy and loved, because I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. Apparently that's the mythical number where Games Workshop notice you, and then they just send you free stuff early so you can review it, which would be lovely. You can become a member. There's a button somewhere to join the channel, and then you pay a monthly fee and you get stuff, and there's a video that explains it. Chiefly what you get is you get free access to the live streams. We do a live stream every Tuesday, and that's public, and anyone can join the live stream, but then if you remember, you can watch the live stream later at your convenience. That's mainly what you get. Alright guys, have a great evening, have a happy Thanksgiving, if that's something that you do, and I will see you again at the weekend, hopefully on Sunday evening when I'm talking about the pre-orders going live next week. That would be nice. Bye bye, bye bye bye, bye bye, goodbye, bye, bye, bye bye.